Welcome to the Student Ministry Matters podcast. We want to encourage, equip, and connect those with a passion to impact the next generation for Jesus Christ. Student ministry can be a lonely place. You might even feel like you're the only one in your church or community that cares about students. Well, know this, you're not alone. People all across the country are engaging Gen Z and care deeply about the spiritual direction of these young men and women. Whether you're full-time, part-time, bivocational, or volunteer, if you have a heart for students, this is the place for you.
Welcome to the podcast. My name is Dan Carson, and you're listening to Student Ministry Matters. Thrilled that you've chosen to download and listen as we continue the conversation about student ministry. Now, over the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about summertime. We looked at events and specifically maybe some choices that you're going to have to make about spiritually minded events, if it's a mission trip or a conference or camp, something along that line. And then last week, we talked about teaching and what that looks like, because the summertime is different. You've got 8 to 10 weeks that you're trying to cram something into, and you're having to work around all those camps and conferences and mission trips that you go to. And so we wanted to kind of wrap up this short little series by talking about fun time during the summertime. And I know that's a corny title, but guess what? I'm 48, so every once in a while, the corny, it just comes out. So tonight I've got Chris Vines with me. Say hi, Chris.
Hi. How's it going, everybody?
Zac can't be on here with us tonight, and so it's just me and Chris. We're going to be talking about these things. But before we get to that, I want to mention our sponsor, Central Baptist College of Conway. This weekend, as I've watched social media blow up, I've seen all of these graduation pictures for colleges, and it's been so cool to watch graduates of Central Baptist College. And I got to make mention of Bobby Wilkie. Bobby has been a faithful servant at that school, a part of their support staff, and he retired this year, and they bestowed on him a degree. And if you know Bobby, that's a real special thing. I love this guy. He has been so faithful for the school for so long. But Central Baptist College, that's the type of place that they are and the type of people that they are. There's a special CBC experience. So if you have a student who's trying to figure out that next step, what they need to do, where they need to go to college, have them contact Central Baptist College at cbc.edu. And they'll get you some information, so reach out to them. Well, Chris, we want to start with a question of the week, and since we're talking about some fun time activities during the summertime, let me ask, lock-in, yes or no? What do you think?
No.
Seems pretty emphatic.
Yeah, well, it's not just so cut and dry, I don't think anymore. I've done a lock-in. I've done multiple lock-ins, as I think most youth leaders have, and they're a lot of fun, but man, they're a lot of work. And I have found in my experience since doing lock-ins here in Hope that, and I'm not going to say never will I ever do one again, but I've just found that they haven't been worth all the effort. And so I've vowed that I will, if I ever do one again, I will do it very differently. And so, and without going down the whole rabbit trail, I'll just say this, that, it seems to be more work of trying to keep the kids who show up who want to just be with their girlfriend or do their own thing. It seems like we're constantly just, shining lights on corners and things like that, more than we are actually having fun. And so that's why the emphatic no to the lock-ins. But also, I'm in a space where it is really hard to lock down. We've got a lot of hidey holes. We've got a lot of rooms. We don't have any it's hard to put them in just one small space for, 12 or 13 hours. But anyway, I know you can do it well, and I know some guys who do. And so more power to you, but we're going to just move on to something else.
Well, Chris, I'm in the same boat, man. I have done lock-ins over the years. Sometimes they've been great events. Other times it is that constant trying to keep couples apart. Probably my worst lock-in was several years into a specific church. I'd been there everything had gone fine for the years before. It was something that we always did during the winter time. And so we just would get together. But that specific night, everything that could go wrong kind of went wrong. There was a hole knocked in a fellowship hall wall.
Oh, gosh.
Then there was another hole knocked in another wall with a door handle. And then there was a third. Wow, that was 3 holes. Yeah. And then there was a third one.
Wow.
Yeah. And see, we didn't have a gym even. We were just doing this throughout the church with a education space and sanctuary and a fellowship hall. And so it was, it was always a lot of fun, but you're right. There's a lot of work because you either have to designate, okay, you're going to go to sleep here, or you have to plan everything out to where they have hours and hours of activity, even more than what you want. So,
yeah. And then they get mad at you. Like, why are we doing stuff?
Exactly. It's like, so you don't fight. And so you don't do other things I don't need you to be doing. So, well, lock-ins can be, again, both Chris and I think are saying, if that's your gig, if that's your thing, okay. But for us, we have decided we're going to figure out something else. And I have. Over the last couple of years that I was at that church, we didn't do overnight lock-ins. I'd come in at about 3:00 and we'd go till midnight and be done. And it was fantastic because they still had all those activities, but nobody got to that breaking point of being so stupid tired that they were stupid. So,
Well, I'll tell you 2 things, and then we can, I know this isn't what the topic is for tonight, but I remember the look in my volunteers' eyes after the second lock-in, and I just got the vibe that it was either they were saying they're either you don't do this again or you're out, and when I say out, I mean I think they were ready to kill me, and so. I decided, I was like, you know what, we can do some more things than a lock-in. But also, man, I made a big rookie mistake. I think it was my very first lock-in to ever do. And I was actually hired by CBC on a part-time basis, very part-time basis. During those few years, I was traveling around to different local church association meetings, just representing the college, and, I've always loved CBC. I did that for them right after I graduated. And then even after I moved away, they continued to use me in that capacity. And so I, for whatever reason, did not see that I had a scheduled association meeting visit for the Saturday after a Friday night lock-in. And it was, the deed was done because I'd already promoted this lock-in. I'd had kids sign up and all this kind of thing. And then I realized what I'd done. And so I went to the lock-in and I was up all night. I mean, I woke up 8 a.m. or earlier that one day, got everything ready, stayed awake all night and drove kids home, got them home by 7. And then I was on the road to El Dorado, Arkansas for a 10 o'clock association meeting on that Saturday. And I'm telling you, it was everything I could do to keep my eyes open while sitting there in those pews, waiting for my turn to get up and represent CBC. 2 5-hour energy drinks later, I somehow crashed in my bed that afternoon around 3. And I don't think I woke up until almost right at church service the next day. I mean, it was awful. And for whatever reason, that was the first lock-in, and I decided to do another one. And so, anyway, you hit a string, a sore string.
I did
in my life, asking that question.
Well, the reason I bring it up is Zach sent us the fun things that they do during the summer, and he leads off with, we do a end of the school year lock-in, and I'm like, bless your heart. Yeah.
I can say that because I love him.
Yeah,
he can laugh at that.
He's still young. That's what I got to say. So, I hit 40 and I thought, these are getting kind of hard. And then I made a decision. And so we changed. But, again, we're talking about fun time during the summertime. And we are looking at some of the fun activities that that we do with our groups, and maybe some decision making process that we go through when we choose those things, because that's what we need to understand is, how do we get to that place? What are we going to do? Maybe think about some things in a way that you didn't think about them before. And so we just want to talk around that. Let me go ahead and share some of the things that Zac sent us. He did mention an end of the year lock-in. He also mentioned that during the summertime, they also have 2 or 3 pool parties, and then a back to school bash. And that may hit something like what you do at your church. Those same things kind of fall into place, because it's kind of hard sometimes getting your group together for some summertime activity. So what do you, Chris, what do you guys do for fun during the summer with your group?
Well, we do a few different things. I mean, I think like most youth groups, we try to get out of our normal space as much as we can. I probably need to lead off and say that the one thing that has stayed consistent for us over the last 7 years really has been something that I call Wandering Wednesdays. And so during the summer months, June and July, we have every Wednesday. I say every Wednesday. The majority of those Wednesdays in June and July, we are moving from place to place, and so I try to get other church members in our congregation involved and have them host a Wednesday night gathering, and that way they're able to see the students. The students are able to see them come into their house or whatever, and so they can cook a meal for them, and so that comes with some houses have pools, and so it might be a pool party. Other houses may have just some wide open space and do some other things, go fishing and things like that. And so Wandering Wednesdays have been just kind of our consistent vibe for, again, the last 7 years. We do it every year. And it allows us just to get out of our building and allow that space to breathe, and also for us to be able to just kind of get outside of that normal space and enjoy some outside community. And so that's the consistent thing that we do. And then on top of that, there's some other fun things that we can talk about. But I'm curious, Dan, for you, I mean, have you ever done anything like that, moving from house to house in your congregation?
Well, something similar. Now, we often didn't go house to house, but in the last church I was at, we would do Thursday lunches. And so that would either be the park or restaurants and different things like that. And so it was something different than the normal Wednesday night. We would meet places. If I needed to pick up kids, we'd run the church van around and I'd grab them. And it was just an opportunity for the kids to connect in a space that was different than the church building, similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask, you said that Wandering Wednesdays, did that take the place of your normal Wednesday night activity?
Well, it's the same time. It's just a different location. And so it's the same. It's our same thing that we do. It's just not in our youth space. And I normally, like we've talked about in this short 3-week series of summer fun and events, I normally take those Wednesdays where we're moving around to teach on a particular topic that is relevant just to the group that I have at that time, or do something a little bit different than I normally do. Because during the school year, I don't have like a themed year, but normally during the school year, we're trying to make our way through a particular book of the Bible or a couple of books of the Bible, that kind of thing. And so the summer allows for me to be able to teach a little bit more sporadically, if I can use it that way, that term that way. And it just goes hand in hand with the fact that we're moving from place to place. And so that it just kind of works for us. Again, I don't know if it'd work for everybody, but I know that it's refreshing for us to just get out of our space and move around, that kind of thing.
Well, and to help our listeners kind of understand where we're coming from, my group at Temple was about 15 to 25 in that range. So you'd go up and down in number. What size of group are you dealing with Wandering Wednesdays?
Yeah, about that. I mean, okay. I've had over 30 before, and anytime you're dealing with a larger group, I don't think that it means that you have to not do something like this, but it does it does make you consider obviously the where you're going to be going, and does the space accommodate that? But typically, like we have some members in our church that are just very hospitable, and they have some wide open space, and I know that we can always I can always go to them, and they're ready to open their doors for whatever group size, and they're going to make it fun. But the other thing I would say too, just is, if this is something that you're wanting to try to do, and you do have a larger group, then just consider finding open space like a park, like you said, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then again, I care deeply about getting the different generations in our church shoulder to shoulder. And so that's part of the purpose behind this whole decision. And but if you're not going to their house, then still invite some members of your church who are very hospitable, and just say, hey, would you be willing to maybe host this, cook a meal, barbecue, or whatever, and just get them involved in a different way, so you can just have that shoulder to shoulder interaction between teenagers and the older generation in your church.
Well, one of the things to consider as you look at fun activities during the summer is to consider where you're at. I live in Northwest Arkansas, and it's a growing community. It's the home of Walmart Corp, as well as Tyson Foods. And so in our area, we have 350 to 500,000 people. So there's a lot of things to do. Your situation is a little bit different, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, a little bit. We have Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart.
Not Walmart Corp.
So, and I just throw that out there because, again, the kids in Chris's student ministry are going to be used to doing different things than the kids that are in my student ministry. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's one of the things that we have to factor in as we look at activity. I have a choice between, let's take bowling, for instance. I have a choice of 4-5 different bowling alleys up and down the I-49 corridor between the cities up here. And so it's just something we have to consider. Well, fun activities, there's a lot of different things that we can do, things that we are doing. What I want to ask Chris and share a little bit myself is what goes into choosing those activities? What are you looking at when you make the choice? Hey, say, I'm going to take my group here. I'm going to take my group here, there. What are some choices or what are some decisions that you have to make when you're approaching that? What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think we have to take into consideration a previous conversation about camp and conferences and things like that we're already doing that are consistent. So I think we have to consider the fact, okay, we're maybe going to a camp in June and then going to a conference in July, and how much is that going to cost? What kind of burden is that putting on parents and families? And then once we determine that and consider that, I think then we can kind of move forward with the other fun things. And so, like for us, what that means in our area is, because we're already going to be going and doing a couple of other big things in the summer, the other fun things besides the Wandering Wednesdays, I'm not looking for an overnight trip. I'm looking for something that we can do within a day. So that then limits our travel. How far are we going to go? Thankfully, in Arkansas, the natural state, we have a lot of outdoor options, and so we usually go at least one day of the summer, typically a Wednesday, because it's easier for our group to go float the river. We go get some canoes, and we have a day on the river, and that's a lot of fun. We live really close to hot springs, and so like this summer, we're planning to spend a day at Magic Springs. That came from a decision. Like some of my group kind of like the water park idea, others don't. And we tried to do that one year at SOAR, try to go to one of the water parks down there.
Right.
And it was just a mixed crowd. Like some loved it, some hated it. And it seemed like it was more people that hated it than not. And so I was just like, you know what? I had some this year that wanted to do it. And Magic Springs is also a theme park. So I was like, we're not going to Six Flags and we're not going to a water park. And so let's just pick a day and we'll just make a day trip out of it. And the kids are really excited about it. Parents are excited about it. It's a cheap day. But then also, I throw in one thing that we kind of do near the end of the summer, and I've used this as kind of a back to school primer, so to speak, a Water Wednesday. We have different water inflatables that we can rent close by, and we bring them out to our location, our church, and we just have a big Water Wednesday, water balloons, water guns. Man, I've tilled up a ground before, and we've had like a big mud pit alongside of it, and man, that was nasty, but it was a lot of fun. Just stuff like that, things that I can do cheap, and that don't make us, go spend the night somewhere in order to do it, because we're already doing that for camp and SOAR.
Yeah, I love, you pointed out a couple of really great things. Number one, cost. We have to consider cost, especially in this post-quarantine world. I guess that's the best way to describe it right now, but we have to consider, can the kids afford whatever we're going to do? I mean, you may have kids that can't afford to go bowling because it's an extra expense, and they've been saving all their nickels and dimes so that they can go to the camp or the conference that you have coming up. So, as much as you can get sponsors through your church, I don't know how, of course, funding works in your group, but you've got to consider cost. And then I think you're totally right, making these day trips or afternoon trips, if you have those other big pieces. There's, of course, fun things that you can do that are overnight. You can go on a little camping trip. You can do hiking or other events that are just simple overnight. But anything you do is going to start costing money when you look at those things. Yeah. One thing that I'm kind of curious about, the other big factor I think that's important as we look at, so we've looked at cost and thinking about in reference to our other trips that we have, where those things are going to fall, is the issue of safety. Now, we have to be concerned about it. I know that as I've gotten older, you think about it more as you get older, because when you fall, you don't get up as quick. But it's not just me. I got to think about my students, and having been a parent who's my kids have survived and made it off to college. I think about that more than I did when I was 25. Before it was like, yeah, let's do whatever. Does that play into your thought process at all, Chris?
I mean, yes. I'm always
Sure.
thinking about safety. Explain that just a little bit more, just so that we're thinking in the right way. I mean, are you thinking in terms of safety in regards to, like, let's not go mountain climbing because of risk of death, or safety because of staying out of certain areas because of risk of just physical harm or something like that? Or is it all of the above?
It's a little of all of the above, but
Okay.
basically high risk activities. For if you take a group of city kids out to float a river, that may not be the safest choice because they're just not used to doing that, and it may take a little bit of encouragement training, and make sure that you have the right people there to help them. If they can't swim.
Absolutely.
I guess that's kind of what I'm referring to is that idea, and of course you don't want to go to a city if your kids aren't used to that sort of thing. I'm thinking about safety. Trying to remember, there was a great book that I picked up. It's on my shelf back in my office, but it talks about that. We need to think about safety, and not just honestly about physical harm that can come from an activity like a mountain climbing, but also thinking about the other safety issues. We're talking about sexual assault and other things that we just really have to be aware of now.
Now, I would say that I don't want to come across in any kind of like falsely macho kind of way.
Sure.
But I would say that safety is always a deciding factor for me. I mean, I'm always thinking in some way about the safety of the group, and I think that's just a default. And so I'm not going to choose anything that would put kids intentionally and put them in harm's way. If let's take the river instance, before we ever go, and nobody else has to ever know about this, but I'm always checking the levels. I'm checking of the river and making sure that before we ever get there, that we're going to be entering into a situation that is manageable for our group. Because you can,
I mean,
the river is, one, if it's too low, it's not any fun. But if it's too high, then it can be dangerous. And especially if I've got, like right now, I've got a very young group that a lot of them have never canoed before. And so I'm not going to say that's a reason not to go, but it is a reason to certainly have more adults there and put more adults with kids in boats and that kind of thing. So I think to answer your question, yeah, safety's always a deciding factor for me.
Yeah, I know that as Chris is a part of the leadership team for our SOAR conference, and so I know that's running in the back of your mind the entire time.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
So keeping kids and keeping students safe. That's it. We've got to take a hold of that responsibility as student ministry workers, because these are people's children.
Yeah.
And we never want to take that lightly. So,
Yeah.
Well, the summertime is full of a lot of good things that you can do, a lot of fun things that you can do. I love your Wandering Wednesdays. That's a great piece that people should take and see how that can apply to theirs. Thursday lunches is how we approached it. Again, making that weekly contact with students, and some of those times when you're off campus, man, really build a relationship that can hold you through a kind of trying school year as they're being pulled away from those church relationships. And so we just want to encourage you as you pick out the things that you're going to be doing in the summertime. Don't forget the fun. I mean, these are students. They want to have fun. We like to have fun. And so we want to look at that. Well, Chris, we're about to wrap up. You got anything else to add in this regard?
Man, I would just say, always have a purpose, always have a reason for why you're going to do what you do, even if that reason is, like you're saying, Dan, to have fun. I think I'm going to use this phrase, and I hope it's not a buzzword and people blackball me for anything. But when it comes to these kind of things, I'm very purpose driven. And so I want anything that I do to be able to be traced back to a value of our church.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the summer months, the value that I always trace things back to is biblical community. Now, there's others that I can trace it back to, but biblical community is a value of ours. We value getting shoulder to shoulder with the people of God and having a good time and growing together in relationship. And the summer is a great time for us to do that. And man, I'm telling you, when you get in a canoe with somebody and you flip over a couple of different times, you build a bond. When you go stay in a cabin at a really hot, stinking camp, there's community that's being built there. There's shared experience. And so while yes, there's a lot of hard things that you have to do, it's worth it. When it comes to building those not just memories, even though that's certainly part of it, but building those relationships, building community among your group. So I would encourage anybody out there who's beginning to make plans for your summer or finalizing them, always have the purpose of fostering good biblical community.
I love the phrase you use, Chris, shared experiences. I've found over the years that is how you build that community. Going on a van trip where you're crammed in with a whole bunch of other students and you're sharing a bunch of goofy songs, just spending time together. Shared experience is an incredible thing. Well, as you approach the summer, man, don't forget the fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. Spend some time with those students, build those relationships, and keep going. And we do all these things because student ministry matters.
Thanks for listening to the Student Ministry Matters podcast. Get connected at studentministrymatters.com or follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Student Ministry Matters. Until next time, keep up the great work with your students because the work matters.